Welcome to this calming ASMR sleep story, where we'll explore the enchanting lore of Valyrian steel swords from A Song of Ice and Fire. These legendary blades are steeped in magic and history, whispering tales of heroes and ancient battles. As you relax and let the soothing ambience carry you away, I invite you to share where you're watching from and what time it is. Your thoughts help create a sense of community in this serene space. Now, let's begin our journey into this mystical world. In the stillness of the night, beneath the silver glow of the moon, let us gather by the campfire and delve into the mysteries of a most legendary metal. Valyrian steel. Born from the mind of George R.R. Martin, this enchanted substance holds properties both mysterious and unparalleled. It is lighter and sharper than any common steel, a blade that never dulls, as if it were forged from the very shadows of the past. Its dark, smoky sheen is reminiscent of the ancient Damascus steel, but with an aura all its own. Dangerous, beautiful, and impossibly rare. Whispered tales say that a single Valyrian steel blade is worth more than an army. Its price as steep as its power. Yet, its true magic lies not only in its craftsmanship, but in the forgotten sorcery woven into its creation. For these blades, unlike ordinary weapons, are one of the few forces that can stand against the cold terror of the White Walkers. Tonight, as we drift further into the realm of myth, we will journey back in time, uncovering the ancient magics lost with the doom of Valyria. Where the secret of forging these blades perished. No living soul knows the craft anymore, the knowledge slipping away with the ashes of that once great empire. And yet, to unlock the mystery of Valyrian steel, we must unravel another secret. One that ties together legends of Dawn and Lightbringer, the most fabled swords in the world. But to understand these weapons, we must first speak of trees. Yes, trees. You see, George R.R. Martin's world is one where trees hold ancient power, none more so than the weirwoods. With their pale white bark and blood-red leaves, they stand sentinel over the lands of Westeros, connected to the old gods. These ancient, watchful trees seem to pulse with life and memory, found only on Westeros's soil. Yet across the sea, on the distant continent of Essos, there is another tree. Dark and twisted, its bark black as night and its leaves blue as the deepest ocean. This is the shade of the evening tree. A cousin of sorts to the weirwood, yet steeped in shadow and mystery. Both trees are mirrors of one another, light and dark, life and death. And both possess the power to extend life and grant visions, offering glimpses into the past, present, and future. There are whispers in the wind, old stories of a race, like the children of the forest, once dwelling in the distant lands of Essos. Could these trees, these living totems of magic, be connected? It is believed so. Perhaps their roots intertwine beneath the earth, stretching across oceans and time, binding the two continents together in ways we do not yet understand. But now, let me take you even deeper into the tale. The shade of the evening tree, with its dark magic, was not the first tree of black wood to appear in Martin's world. In the earliest pages of A Game of Thrones, we are introduced to the Ironwood tree, a mighty and symbolic force, mentioned frequently in those first chapters. Its presence is felt, its meaning profound, yet after that first book, its name fades, only mentioned a few more times throughout the rest of the saga. But there, in the second book, another black-barked tree takes root. The shade of the evening, with its haunting blue leaves. George R.R. Martin is a writer who weaves his creations in and out of the narrative, breathing life into them in unexpected ways. And though the Ironwood tree seems to have been left behind, it finds new life, transformed into a tree that burns blue in his Telltale RPG game. Now, you might ask, what does any of this have to do with Valyrian steel? Ah, but therein lies the genius of Martin's world. To understand the magic of his swords, we must understand the roots of his trees. The threads of influence and inspiration that run through every branch of his story. Grey Area, a storyteller well versed in these ancient myths, has explored the deep connection between George R.R. Martin's work and Tad Williams' memory. Sorrow and Thorn. In this realm, we find echoes of the legend of Azor Ahai and the forging of the legendary sword, Lightbringer. But it is not only the tale of Lightbringer that holds fascination. It is the dark and powerful sword from memory, sorrow, and thorn, the blade known as Sorrow, that catches our attention tonight. You see, in Tad Williams' world, the making of Sorrow required something far more sinister than ordinary steel. Its creation involved the magical essence of a tree called the Witchwood. Yet, it wasn't the pure, uncorrupted witchwood that was used, but a darker, twisted version of it. A tree tainted with iron, a metal known to poison the children of the forest-like beings, called the Sithi and their sacred trees. Despite this corruption, one tree survived, but it no longer bore life as we know it. Instead, its sap now flowed with iron's poison, and from this cursed tree, the sword Sorrow was forged. This tale holds a shadowy mirror to the legend of Lightbringer in George R.R. Martin's world. As the story goes, when Azor Ahai forged his sword, there was great sorrow, for he knew what he must sacrifice to imbue the blade with its magic. In both tales, there is a sacrifice, whether it be the poisoning of a sacred tree or the price paid in blood, to bring forth a weapon of immense power. But now, let us speak of the blade itself. Lightbringer, said to be forged in the fires of sacrifice and wielded by Azor, the hero destined to save the world from the darkness. In the north, there is a legend of the last hero, the northern echo of Azor Ahai. It is said that this hero, too, fought the White Walkers, wielding a blade made not of ordinary steel, but of dragon steel, an ancient material with powers akin to Valyrian steel. For a long time, this connection was merely whispered speculation among scholars and storytellers. Yet the connection between these legendary blades became all but certain in the 5th season of Game of Thrones. During the battle at Hardhome, there, in the icy grip of the White Walkers, it was revealed that Valyrian steel could shatter their frozen menace, a revelation that set minds aflame with the possibility that Valyrian steel and dragon steel might indeed be one and the same. And if the last hero's dragonsteel blade and Azor Ahai's Lightbringer were truly the same sword, then perhaps Lightbringer itself was forged from what we now call Valyrian steel. But how was this metal made? How were these fabled blades, seemingly imbued with the very fire of dragons, brought into existence? Alas, the secrets of forging Valyrian steel died with the doom of Valyria, and no one alive today knows the full truth. All that remains are the fragments of knowledge passed down from the lost empire. Rumors, shadows of an ancient craft, whispered about in hushed tones. Still, in the free city of Kohar, there are smiths who have retained a sliver of that lost art. Though they cannot create new Valyrian steel, these smiths possess the rare skill of reworking existing Valyrian blades, reforging them into new shapes. Yet even in this, the methods are closely guarded, and none but the smiths themselves know what secret rituals or sacrifices are required to shape the metal. One tantalizing rumor suggests that sacrifice, perhaps even a blood offering, might be necessary to reforge Valyrian steel, hinting at the dark magic that once bound this ancient art to life. Long ago, a maester of the Citadel journeyed to Kohar, hoping to uncover the forbidden techniques used by the legendary smiths to rework Valyrian steel. But what he found there chilled him to the bone. Blood sacrifices were part of the process, a practice so horrific that the maester was exiled and maimed for his discovery. His hands severed as a warning to others. This grim knowledge only deepens the connection between Valyrian steel and the legendary sword Lightbringer. For it is said that Azor Ahai, the hero of ancient legend, forged Lightbringer through a similar sacrifice. After failing twice to create the blade destined to save the world, Azor Ahai labored for 100 days and 100 nights on his third and final attempt. When the sword glowed white-hot in the sacred flames, he called forth his beloved wife, Nissa. "Bare your breast," he said to her, "and know that I love you best of all that is in this world." In a moment of heartbreaking surrender, she did as he asked, though none can say why. With great sorrow, Azor Ahai plunged the still-smoking sword through her living heart. It is said that Nissa's final cry of anguish and ecstasy was so powerful that it left a crack across the face of the moon itself. But her sacrifice was not in vain. Her blood, her soul, her strength, and her courage all flowed into the blade, imbuing it with the power of life and death. Her very soul became one with Lightbringer, forever bound to the weapon that would hold the fate of the world within its edge. This idea, the soul becoming part of the sword, echoes through the mythos of Valyrian steel. To understand how such a thing might be possible, we must return once more to the trees of George R.R. Martin's world, for they hold the key to the magic behind these weapons. The shade of the evening tree, a dark counterpart to the weirwoods, offers us a clue. In the shadowy grove of these trees, which Daenerys Targaryen glimpsed outside the House of the Undying, they were described as drinking the morning sun. This strange, life-draining image calls to mind Valyrian steel itself, which the blacksmith Tobermoth once described as drinking the sun. The connection between these magical trees and Valyrian steel is as deep as the roots of the shade of the evening trees themselves. Just as the weirwoods and shade trees seem to be inverse versions of one another, light and dark, life and death, their magic reflects the power that might reside within these enchanted blades. But what caused this split? What poised the magic of the shade of the evening trees, turning them into dark reflections of the weirwoods? To answer this, we must once again look to sacrifice and corruption. Much like the witchwood tree in Tad Williams' tale, which was poisoned by iron and used to forge the dark blade Sorrow, the shade of the evening trees bear the stain of corruption. Throughout George R.R. Martin's world, we see this theme: poison and decay associated with black trees. The Blackwood family's sacred tree, long linked to the old gods, was poisoned. When Euron Greyjoy offers his brother Victarion a drink of shade at the evening, Victarion immediately asks if Euron intends to poison him. The idea of poison, of corruption creeping into the very heart of these trees, is key to understanding the darker side of the magic they contain. Just as the witchwood, in memory, sorrow, and thorn was twisted by iron, it seems likely that the magic of the shade of the evening trees has been corrupted by something equally sinister. And just as Sorrow, the sword forged from this corrupted witchwood, was a weapon of dark power, so too might Valyrian steel be forged from a process that involves both magic and sacrifice. This poison, this corruption, may be what gives the steel its unique properties, able to slay White Walkers, drink the sun, and perhaps even trap the souls of those sacrificed in its forging. In this way, the legend of Nissa Nissa and the sacrifice of blood connects directly to the mysteries of Valyrian steel. The use of corrupted or darkened magic, combined with the sacrifice of life force, may well explain why these blades are so powerful, and why their secrets were lost with the fall of Valyria. The dark magic that binds soul to steel, the very essence of life and death, lies at the heart of these weapons, waiting to be rediscovered by those brave or foolish enough to seek it. As we turn our gaze to the darker paths walked by men like Euron Greyjoy, we find that not all gifts are what they seem. When Euron offers his brother Victarion a cup filled with a thick cruck, blue-black liquid known as Shade of the Evening, the smell alone is enough to evoke revulsion. Rotted flesh, a scent of corruption. Victarion recoils, suspecting poison. "Do you mean to poison me?" he asks. But Euron only smiles, drinking deeply from his own cup. "I mean to open your eyes." In the world of George R.R. Martin, Euron Greyjoy is a much darker and more sinister figure in the books than his portrayal on screen. His relationship with the mysterious Shade of the Evening only deepens his descent into madness and power. This drink, black as night and thick as oil, grants visions. Gifts, some might say. Yet, as with so much in Martin's world, there is a cost. For all of Euron's gifts are poisoned. Another word for a gift is a talent, and it seems Euron's talent is his ability to see visions, an inverse and corrupted form of green sight. He sees through darkened lenses, twisted by his excessive consumption of the Shade of the Evening. This poisoned sight is not limited to the mind, though. There is a symbolic connection between the poison of Shade of the Evening and a Darko, ancient material found across Essos, the black, oily stone. From the ruins of Ashiai, where no life can grow and women cannot bear children, to the jungles of Yeti, where even the trees refuse to approach the construction sites built of this cursed material. Black, oily stone is synonymous with death and decay. It, too, drinks the light, much like the Shade of the Evening trees and Valyrian steel, both of which are said to drink the sun. The symbolism suggests a dark and destructive force behind these materials, a magic that drains life rather than nurturing it. Martin weaves this idea into the very heart of his characters and their stories. One striking example is Oberyn Martell, known as the Red Viper of Dawn, who famously poisoned Seer Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, during their trial by combat. The poison he used was described as black oil, and here, the tree-like imagery emerges once more. The spear used to deliver the poison had a head shaped like a leaf, connecting back to the imagery of poisoned trees, like the Shade of the Evening and the black, oily stone. The tale of Oberyn also ties in with the House of Ironwood, whose very name suggests a connection to this dark theme of poison and corruption. When Oberyn was just 16, he dueled with the old Lord Euronwood, who had caught the young prince in bed with his paramour. Though the duel was intended to be to first blood, the wound inflicted upon Lord Euronwood festered and killed him. A fate whispered to have been caused by a baron's poised blade. This incident earned him the moniker Red Viper, and from that point on, friends and enemies alike would fear the deadly poison he carried. The symbolism of blood, poison, and trees runs deep through these stories. Just as the weirwood trees have red sap, their dark counterpart, the Shade of the Evening trees, are marked by their blue sap. What some might call blue blood, a term often used to describe royal bloodlines. House Ironwood, fittingly, is known for its own epithet, the blood royal. These subtle connections between blue blood and poison reflect the deeper corruption at play in Martin's world, as though the very essence of life has been tainted. Even Daenerys Targaryen, during her visions in the House of the Undying, is confronted by this symbol of corruption. There, she encounters the blue heart, pulsing with a sickly, poised energy, high above the Undying Ones. The heart, like the shade of the evening tree itself, is full of darkness and rot, a symbol of the poisoned gifts that come from urine and the ancient magics tied to these cursed substances. The vision hints at the dangerous power that flows through these darkened veins and the terrible cost it exacts. Through the narrow door, Daenerys stepped, her feet whispering against the stone floor, her breath mingling with the air heavy with age and rot. A chamber of wash and gloom greeted her, a long stone table dominating the room, and above it, floating as if alive yet grotesquely unnatural, was a heart, swollen and blue with corruption. It pulsed slowly, a ponderous throb echoing in the silent chamber. Each beat sent out ripples of indigo light, casting eerie shadows upon the figures seated around the table, their forms no more than blue spectres. As she walked toward the empty chair at the foot of the table, the blue shadows remained unmoving, their gazes locked elsewhere, silent and still. The only sound in the chamber was the slow, steady rhythm of the rotting heart, each beat a reminder of decay, of something once vital, now twisted into something grotesque. And it was here, in this place of poised magic, that we are reminded of the deeper connection. The heart and the harp, the weirwood tree and its kin. For, in George R.R. Martin's world, another name for a weirwood is a harp tree. The weirwood's red sap and white bark are mirrors of a different kind of magic, a purer, ancient force. But the shade of the evening trees, those black-barked counterparts with their blue sap, are the dark reflection of this. When Daenerys first tasted the shade of the evening, she described it as tasting like ink and spoiled meat. This description is not merely sensory, it is symbolic, a whisper of a greater truth. It suggests that the shade of the evening trees may have once been something else, something closer to the weirwoods, before a poisoning, a corruption, changed them forever. And here we see parallels, not just to the weirwoods, but to another tale of a poisoned tree, the witchwood of Tad Williams' memory, sorrow and thorn. In that story, the witchwood was poised with iron, twisted from its natural state, and used in the forging of the sword sorrow. The connections between these poisoned trees run deeper still when we recall the ironwood tree, the precursor to the black-barked shade of the evening. The echoes between these tales speak to a larger mythos, a common theme of corruption seeping into the heart of magic, of life. The question naturally arises: what caused this corruption? What transformed the shade of the evening trees into their current poisoned state? The answer lies, as it often does, in the distant past. The world of ice and fire, the great tome of history in Martin's world, hints at the source of this poison. It speaks of a connection between the shade of the evening trees and the black oily stone, the cursed material that exists in abundance in the city of Eshai. Eshai, the dark and twisted city where no animals live, no children are born, and where food and water are scarce. It is a place where magic is powerful but toxic, where the very light itself seems to be consumed by the black oily stone. Just as Valyrian steel and shade of the evening drink the morning sun, the black oily stone in Eshai drinks the light, casting shadows not only over the land, but over the history of the world itself. In ancient times, before the world was plunged into the long night, Eshai was likely part of the great empire of the dawn, a civilization that ruled in glory before the fall. But then came the Bloodstone Emperor, a name spoken with both fear and reverence in the annals of history. He was said to have been the brother of the Amethyst Empress, who ruled the empire with wisdom and grace. But jealousy and ambition stirred in his heart. He cast her down, slaying her to claim the throne, and in doing so, began a reign of terror that would plunge the world into darkness. The Bloodstone Emperor practiced dark arts, necromancy, torture, and sacrifices. He turned from the true gods and began to worship a black stone that had fallen from the sky. A stone that became the focus of his twisted faith. Scholars believe that this stone was tied to the Church of Starry Wisdom, a sinister order that persists even to this day in secretive pockets across the known world. The Bloodstone Emperor's reign of darkness, known as the Blood Betrayal, is said to have been the event that ushered in the long night, an age where the sun and stars were blotted out, and the world was plunged into an endless winter. It is this event, this moment of betrayal and darkness, that transformed Eshai into the blighted Shadowlands. And it was during this time that the magical trees of Essos, once akin to the weirwoods of Westeros, were forever altered. The shade of the evening trees, with their black bark and blue sap, became the poisoned remnants of what they once were, twisted by the same forces that turned Eshai into a toxic wasteland. Their magic became dark and corrupt, much like the black oily stone that seems to drink the light and life around it. In reality, meteorites and meteoric iron have been discovered in ancient weapons across the world, which is where the link between iron, meteors, and magic swords in fiction takes root. Once you're aware of this, other things begin to stand out. Like Darkstar, the enigmatic character Seer Gerold Dane. His name not only evokes imagery of a magical black stone falling from the sky, but also serves as a counterpoint to what you might expect from House Dane. A house famous for its legendary sword Dawn, but Darkstar is more of an inverse of House Dane's values, much like how the shade of the evening trees are the dark counterpart to the weirwoods. When Darkstar is introduced in the series, he's honing his blade with an oil stone, a subtle but potent connection to black oily stone, which symbolizes corruption throughout Martin's world. When asked if he is the Sword of the Morning, a title held by the wielder of dawn, he replies, "I am Darkstar, and I am the end of the night." This statement alone frames him as a character tied to shadow and darkness. But there's also this curious line. The Ironwoods might declare for Quentyn, but alone they were no threat. If they went over to Tommen and the Lannisters, they would have Darkstar destroy them, root and branch. The phrase root and branch here is striking because it connects back to our discussion of trees, corruption, and poison. Darkstar's very presence symbolizes destruction, a poison that can wipe out something from its roots to its branches, much like the corruption of magical trees in Martin's world. And this destruction seems to parallel his association with poison, further reinforced by Sir Daemon's grim remark. Is that what Darkstar is? A man? Sir Geralt is more a viper than your uncle ever was. Prince Oberyn could see that he was poison. So what does this all mean for the broader mythology of magical swords and trees and A Song of Ice and Fire? Let's turn our attention to another minor house in the north. The Foresters, most prominently featured in the Telltale Games series. House Forrester is known as the Guardian of the Ironwood Forest, a house closely associated with the Ironwood tree. Their sigil, a sword embedded within a tree, symbolizing a connection between their guardianship of Ironwood and the potential of this magical wood being a key component of Valyrian steel. This idea of magical wood being tied to Valyrian steel brings us back to another important symbol. The weirwood and ebony doors at Tobo Mott's forge in King's Landing. Tobo Mott, a blacksmith from Kohar, the only city with knowledge of how to reforge Valyrian steel. Reforge his ice. The ancestral sword of House Stark, proving he knows the ancient techniques lost to most of the world. But what about those doors? Why pair weirwood with ebony in such a specific and symbolic way? As explored in my video on Shade of the Evening, George R.R. Martin often pairs the word ebony with weirwood to evoke a symbolic dichotomy between light and dark, life and death. In the House of the Undying, Daenerys encounters ebony and weirwood doors, and similar doors appear in the House of Black and White. Ebony likely refers to Shade of the Evening, a dark counterpart to weirwood. And the weirwood and ebony doors to Tobo Mott's forge may be the key to understanding the mystery of Valyrian steel. The symbolism here, black and white, Shade of the Evening and weirwood, ebony and whitewood, suggests that the creation or reforging of Valyrian steel may involve some kind of balance between these magical forces, with weirwood, or its inverse, Shade of the Evening, possibly playing a role in the forging process. This could explain why Valyrian steel is so rare and difficult to reforge, as it might require access to both the magical properties of weirwood and the corrupted essence of Shade of the Evening. And as we circle back to Dorne, the famous sword of House Dane, there's another connection to explore. Dawn, forged from a fallen star, is said to be as pale as milk glass, standing in stark contrast to Valyrian steel, which is dark and sharp. The fact that dawn is not described as Valyrian steel might be a clue that it was created using a different process, perhaps involving a different kind of celestial or magical material. The pairing of weirwood and ebony, light and dark, might provide the answer as to why dawn is so distinct, yet still legendary in its own right. While most houses pass their ancestral swords down from lord to lord, House Dane's tradition is unique. Only a knight of House Dane deemed worthy is allowed to wield dawn and bear the title Sword of the Morning. This gives us two mysterious swords, Dawn and Valyrian steel swords. Though they share comparable properties, they seem to be opposites. Dawn is described as being pale and alive with light, while Valyrian steel is dark and is said to drink the sun. This contrast speaks to a deeper symbolic difference between the two types of swords. Valyrian steel, we know, originates from Essos, but dawn is native to Westeros. If we follow the theory that Valyrian steel could be tied to the magical black trees like the shade of the evening, it opens up the possibility that dawn may have been forged using Westerosi weirwood. This could explain dawn's unique properties and its resemblance to the pale, glowing gates of the Nightfoot, which are made of weirwood and are described as glowing like milk and moonlight. When George R.R. Martin created Dawn, he drew inspiration from several sources, especially the Swordthorn from Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, as well as the Ebony Blade from Marvel Comics. The Ebony Blade, wielded by Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, shares striking similarities with Dawn. It, too, was forged from a meteor that fell to Earth, and only those deemed worthy within the Whitman lineage can wield it. Like Dawn, the Ebony Blade is a powerful, magical weapon passed down through generations. However, the Ebony Blade holds a dark secret. It traps the souls of those it slays within the blade. In one storyline, Namor, the Submariner, a character who greatly influenced George R.R. Martin, uses the Ebony Blade to kill his wife Marina in order to save humanity. Her soul becomes trapped within the blade, a fate that mirrors the idea of sacrifice and soul entrapment that we've seen with magical weapons in other stories, such as the Forging of Lightbringer by Azor Ahai. This thematic link brings us back to the idea that sacrifice is necessary to forge or reforge Valyrian steel. If the magical materials used in creating Valyrian steel include weirwood or shade of the evening trees, the soul entrapment might be connected to the essence of these trees themselves. The children of the forest, who worshipped the old gods, believed that when their green seers or skin changers died, their souls were absorbed into the weirwoods. The trees, particularly the weirwoods, are described as holding the collective memories, songs, and histories of these green seers, making them essentially living archives of the souls and experiences of those who became one with the trees. The concept of the weirwoods, absorbing the essence of those who die near them, suggests that the process of forging Valyrian steel, or even the mystical sword Dawn, could similarly involve the entrapment of a soul. The idea aligns with the notion that ancient sacrifices or spells might have allowed a portion of a person's life force to be fused with the steel, lending it the supernatural properties attributed to these legendary blades. Another significant clue is found in Jaime Lannister's fever dream while resting his head on a weirwood stump. Jaime wields a flaming sword and is reminded of Winterfell's heart tree. When he wakes, he realizes the stump he rested on is white, much like weirwood, and reflects on those who have died. Ned Stark, Rhaegar, Arthur Dayne, and King Aerys. The moment feels haunted, a reminder of how death and memory are connected to the trees in Martin's world. This scene resonates with the idea that the trees are more than just wood. They are spiritual vessels, containing the souls and memories of those who passed. These layers of symbolism suggest that Valyrian steel, forged with magic, blood, and sacrifice, is not simply enchanted metal. It is imbued with a deeper spiritual essence. It might also explain why these swords are so powerful, capable of remembering the strength and essence of the individuals tied to their creation. The pale, glowing nature of ghost grass near Ashai is another clue, described in a similar way to Dawn, pale as milk glass, and rumored to grow from the spirits of the damned. While there may not be a direct relationship between Dawn and ghostgrass, the symbolism is certainly evocative, hinting that Dawn could be a vessel for souls, much like how the spirits are believed to inhabit ghostgrass. Then there is the tragic figure of Ashara Dayne, who died from a broken heart by leaping from the Palestone Sword Tower, adding another layer of symbolism to Dawn. Her death parallels Nissa Nissus, an important figure in the myth of Azor Ahai, who was sacrificed to forge the sword Lightbringer. Azura's name also links to the Semitic goddess Azura, whose symbol was a tree, further connecting the idea of swords like Dawn to trees, spiritualism, and sacrifice. The Last Hero story also offers intriguing clues. Legend says he set out during the long night to find the children of the forest, who later helped him acquire a dragonsteel blade to fight the others. The common interpretation is that the children of the forest helped the last hero obtain a magical sword. But there's a conflict with this idea. The children didn't craft metal weapons, only using materials like wood. If the essence of the children's magic lies within trees, particularly weirwoods, then it's possible they provided the key ingredient necessary to forge this magical weapon, possibly by infusing a weirwood component into the sword. In memory, sorrow, and thorn, George R.R. Martin's inspiration for Dawn is echoed in the legendary sword Thorn, which was forged from a meteor. In its mythology, a red comet brought a meteor crashing down upon a sacred tree where a messianic figure was crucified. The sword was forged from the largest piece of the stone, and the hilt shaped like the tree on which their savior hung. Here, we see a parallel combination of a sacrifice, a tree, and a falling star, much like the key ingredients for Dawn and Lightbringer in Martin's world. The prologue of A Game of Thrones, with Waymar Royce's sword breaking as he faces the others, echoes the fate of the last hero. Bran's dream of knights fighting with swords that shine like starfire transitions into the Godswood, further connecting Dawn, Weirwood, and the forces of magic and memory that underpin this world. The sigils of House Dane and Seer Duncombe the Tall, both featuring a shooting star, suggest a unity between these great symbols, linking them to a cosmic order. Even the forging of the Unsullied is compared to the forging of a sword, invoking the same imagery of fire, ice, blood, and sacrifice necessary to create something as enduring and powerful as a Valyrian steel blade. In the end, if Dawn is indeed Lightbringer, the sword that will end the long night, it may carry the soul of Nyssa still within it. The sword of morning, like the break of dawn, symbolizes the end of darkness and the righting of an ancient wrong. The Bloodstone Emperor's betrayal, the death of the Amethyst Empress, and the creation of the long night. To break the night, the soul within Dawn may need to be freed, a final sacrifice to ensure that light once again triumphs over darkness. And with that, dear listener, I leave you to ponder these ancient tales, swords glowing with trapped souls, and the mysteries that linger just beyond the reach of day. As you drift off to sleep, may your dreams be filled with knights in gleaming armor, werewoods whispering forgotten secrets, and swords forged in the fires of legends. Good night.